Hey everybody, it's Gamer Grampz here. Today we are going to be covering some Civ 6 tips, specifically that work for beginners, but also that are actually still valuable and usable on the higher difficulties. So if that sounds like it might help you out, then definitely stick around. If you want to get good at Civ 6, then subscribe and click the bell to keep up with this channel. Alright, so here we go. The first tip we're going to cover in today's video is an easy way for you to save money when purchasing tiles and save production when building your districts in the early game. Now in a previous video I went over the district discount mechanic that can save you 40% of the production costs on districts with a little bit of foresight on your part, but this technique is completely different and they can be used together if you wanted to. I've known for a long while that every time you research 2 techs or civics or any combination of one each, the price to purchase land tiles, the production cost of your district, and the production cost of your city projects goes up. Until I recently played that 120 turn culture win without secret societies using the new Magnificence Catherine, I never realized just how much of an impact this can have in the beginning and early mid game if you use a little micromanagement. So what you do is basically not research any tech or civic that you absolutely don't need right at the current moment in order to get your district of choice up online or improve any nearby luxury resources you want to trade right away. Research the ones you don't absolutely need right this second down to 1 turn left if you've already boosted them, or 1 turn shy of that boost completion mark if you've yet to get the boost but know that you're most likely going to do so. By doing this, you'll limit the amount of production required for your districts, and while the first districts might only have 2 or 4 production shaved off if you beeline for them right away, that can often shave an entire turn of production off the completion of your district in the early game if you don't have an ideal spawn location. And this obviously just compounds more and more as you continue to get techs and civics research and start targeting districts further down the line. Using this technique well into the classical era can be very effective and save you a lot of production and also gold when buying tiles for chops or really powerful yields. It does take a bit of practice to get used to doing it, but ultimately pays off in spades. The key is to still put the turns into the other techs or civics that you would normally get, and having them 1 turn away from finish still ensures that they'll be easy to unlock when you need them for defense or are ready to actually start working on producing something that the tech or civic unlocks. Alright, so this next one is going to be fairly straightforward and easily achieved. Well, maybe not so much on DD. If you're playing on DD, I'd caution against using this regularly because oftentimes even waiting 1 extra turn can result in you getting sniped by the AI. And this is because the AI does target this wonder pretty much all the time in their various scripting. So the tip itself is that if you're going for a science or culture game but haven't managed to secure yourself a golden age, but you're near the end of the era and you're going to complete the great library beforehand, but somehow you can't come up with the air score you need in order to get the upcoming golden age, delay finishing it. Take it down to 1 turn remaining and then switch to building something else. By doing this and then choosing the standard age version of the free inquiry dedication that gives you 1 air score for every Eureka you achieve, you can easily get yourself an instant 5 or 10 air score right off the bat on turn 1 of the new era because of all the ancient and classical era Eurekas that you instantly get when you finish the wonder. This is actually a significant boost and will help you a long way to making sure that you do get a golden age in the following era. Again though, I caution you against using this technique on DD too often. For instance, when I was playing this game specifically to get the footage for this video, I literally had it ready to finish on turn 49, which was the last turn of my era, but got sniped the following turn when the next era started and I wouldn't have completed it for the air score I wanted. Okay, so tip number 3 mainly focuses around culture games, but it can also be used in science games as well, because culture is an important part of winning an efficient space race. This is just a small thing that I'm sure a lot of people aren't aware of, so I figured I'd include it here, but don't expect your jaw to hit the floor by any means. Alright, so when you first start building art museums across your empire and you start earning your first couple of great artists, most people don't think twice about just popping all 3 charges right away in the same city, since you have 0 chance of theming any of your museums anyway until you get a lot more artists, or you trade with other civilizations for their pieces. I myself fit this shoe perfectly for a very long time. I still did it this way hundreds of hours into playing the game, and I honestly never gave it a second thought. But this is wrong. What you want to do is actually spread out your first artist's great works throughout any museums that you have online. When you spend that first charge, you'll notice that you get a certain amount of culture and tourism. However, when you spend the second charge in the same place, you actually get a reduced amount of culture and tourism from that piece because it's your second piece from the same great artist in the same museum. If you simply send him or her on their merry way over to your next city with a museum before popping that second charge, you'll get the full amount of culture and tourism again, just like you did with your first charge in the original city. I do realize this is a small amount of culture and tourism we're talking about here, but every little bit does count, especially on the higher difficulties where you're playing catch up against the AIs for so long. Keep in mind this technique does naturally also make it a lot easier for you to get in the habit of theming your museums if that isn't something that you normally pay a lot of attention to. There is one exception to this though that I should mention as well. If one of your first art museums is in your capital where you have the palace, feel free to spend your second charge there before moving the artist onward and forward, because if you put one piece in your palace and the other in the museum, you will get the full yields from both of them. The same type of exception applies if you're playing using the Secret Societies game mode and you chose the Void Singers. In that case, you could blow all 3 of the artist's load in your capital and just put 1 in each of the spots already talked about, and then the 3rd into the spot at the Old God obelisk. And then going forward, you could put 2 works in each city with an obelisk other than your cap until you have the right combination of artworks that you can actually theme your museums. Hey everybody, Gamer Grampz here. I'm quickly interrupting just to say that if you're enjoying the video, please do me a favor and leave a like on it if you haven't already. It does really go a long way towards helping the channel get discovered, and clearly you know it by now. I'm special. I need all the help I can get, right? Alright, so in an older tip video, I showcased a technique where you can use the combination of any ranged unit and a scout to bait the spearman out of a barbarian camp and then zip in to pop the hut with your scout as soon as he steps out. This next tip is similar to that, but a lot more useful throughout the full range of a game. So the technique is to use civilian units to bait the AI into moving into a kill zone if you're on the defense, or bait them out of their cities so you can target the unit without it being protected from the city walls if you're on the offense. This is particularly useful for when you get about 60 or 70 turns into a standard game and the AI starts pumping out crossbow units. Obviously, a builder is the ideal choice to use for the strategy. However, settlers do work if you happen to have one kicking around or manage to capture one from the enemy, but don't have a nearby city location until after you finish taking them out. What you do is set up your troops in a position where they're out of range of the enemy units, but in position so that when you move your builder forward and they send a unit forward to steal it, that unit walks into a kill zone where your troops are ready to pounce. Alternatively, if you're the one pressing the attack against the enemy, you set your troops up out of range of both the city walls and any ranged units inside of the city, but where they can attack the second ring of tiles out from the city. Move the civilian unit onto a tile in that second ring and end your turn. More often than not, the enemy will venture out to steal your unit and fall for your trap. This can be even more effective when you have cavalry available to zip in to take the builder and zip back out, allowing you to rinse and repeat this process rather than having to wait 2 turns to get the setup correct if you're using melee or ranged units to retake your civilian unit after taking out their captor. Alright, so the last tip of the video is going to be a handy way for you to switch in and out of policy cards quickly that you don't want to leave slotted in for a long time. Good examples of this would be the Land Surveyor's policy card, which saves you 20% of the gold when purchasing tiles, or the Serfdom card, which gives you an extra 2 builder charges if you have a round of builders timed out to finish on the same turn, but aren't producing more after that, or have low production where it's going to be a lot of turns until the next round is ready to pop. So in a previous tip video, I already covered the technique that you can use government switching in order to pop a card in, use it, then change your government type on the same turn and get to reset your choices afterwards so you aren't stuck with that policy card in place for a long time. The problem is, there's only so many times you can do this in a game without going into anarchy for switching back to an old government choice. The other way to do this that I think most people are aware of is that you leave civics that you don't absolutely need in your current game type, like military tradition in a peaceful game, or some of the dead-end civics throughout the tree that don't lead to further options and you don't necessarily need. I want to give a shout out to Kip Bass who suggested this to me, and it is very simple, and yet I never actually put it into use until he mentioned it. In order to take advantage of quick policy card changes more often, simply research civics that you don't need in your playthrough, like theology in a standard science game, or also civics that you will be using but don't necessarily need the benefits they unlock right now down to 1 turn remaining. Then you simply leave them with 1 turn left until you do absolutely need to use them, or you want to swap in and out of a policy card real quick. Pop the card in, use it, then 1 turn later you can swap back into actually useful and productive policy cards for the long haul. Like I said, pretty straightforward and simple, and yet for whatever reason, I'd never taken it that extra step. Okay, well, I'm not sure how experienced you are. I'm going to put a link in the top right-hand corner for the rest of this tip series if you're interested. There's, at the moment, 6 other videos exactly like the one you just watched in it. Other than that, too, I will also link to specifically DD Survival Guide that I did recently as well, so I'll throw that in there in case you're interested. Other than that, we've come to the end. If you haven't already, please do me a favor and leave a like on the video. It really does go a long way towards helping the channel get discovered. But but better yet, go ahead and share the video if you have friends who play the game, or you're involved in a Discord server or communities, etc., where you're allowed to share that kind of stuff. I definitely appreciated it. But other than that, I've rambled enough, at least for this video, so I'm just going to shut up, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.